Hey everyone, it's time to Nefis and chill. In this video, we'll showcase and go over the Magicka Necromancer DPS class for the Elder Scrolls Online. As always, if you want to keep up to date with the latest changes, builds, guides, and so forth, definitely subscribe to the channel or check out the ESO University website where this guide will also be posted in terms of its build page and other details that I'll also go over in the video. And for next patch, since there's going to be a lot more changes, especially with the hybridization for update 33, otherwise known as the Ascending Tide DLC, definitely check back once we get our testing together. But for now, in this video, let's go over the Magicka Necromancer. The Magicka Necromancer has remained a very staple and strong class since its introduction in 2019 due to the major vulnerability and support DPS utilization the class offers. The recommended races for this build, in terms of min-maxing, will be Altmer or Dunmer. The recommended Mundus Stone is going to be the Thief. The recommended potions for this build will be Essence of Spell Power, and the recommended food for this build will be Ghastly Eyeball, or any buy-stat food for content that requires you to do so. You can also go with Clockwork Citrus Fillet or Wishwinter's Potent Brew, depending on the situation. Of course, we'll typically have for pretty much all content 64 points into Magicka. And just to kind of go over the single target setup, it's going to be pretty much the same as every other kind of setup for Magicka DPS. For update 32, we have the one-piece Slimecraw in medium, we have the 5 Bosses Mania in light on the armor pieces, a Harpooner's Waiting Kilt in medium, of course, and we do have Kinraz's Wrath on the front bar. The daggers will be, situational. Otherwise, you can go with Inferno Staff. And on the back bar, it's going to be your good old friend Maelstrom Inferno Staff. And if, as you can see on the video, these are all the weights, traits, and enchantments, and where you can have your pieces. If you don't have Bosses Mania, you'll need a different light armor set to wear on the body. Typically, this will be from best to worst: Sororia, False God's Devotion, and Mother's Sorrow. Monster sets recommended for the Magicka Necromancer would include Kionar's Nightmare, if you are the one person in the group running this, Zanz, Stormfist, Iceheart, or Dami House. You can only use one piece of Valken Scoria instead of Slimecraw if there's not enough penetration provided in your groups. And other alternative setups that we'll go over will include certain setup sets such as Burning Spellweave, Soul's Torment, and so forth. In terms of the jewelry trade, Bloodthirsty is still the best available for most scenarios. And let's go over the skills actually themselves. On the front bar, typically you'll have the Scouting Rune, Detonating Siphon, Stalking Blastbones, Barb Trap, Inner Light, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. Of course, depending on the fight, you may also be able to swap out Barb Trap for Channel Acceleration. And on the back bar, it's going to be Mystic Orb, Unstable Wall of Fire, Structured Entropy, Avid Boneyard, and Skeletal Arcanist, with the ultimate being Shooting Star. In terms of the champion points, it is as shown on the video. Your Warfare slottables, the most ideal slottables will be Biting Aura, Backstabber, Master at Arms, and Thaumaturge. And depending on your critical damage rating provided by the group, you may or may not need to slot Finding Finesse for one of these slottables. And lastly, before we go over the rotation aspect of the Magicka Necromancer DPS, we are going to show you the alternative setups. So for example, trash setup, a lot of people ask, or a lot of newer players keep asking me what a trash setup means. It's just basically for large ad pulls or large packs of enemies that are not bosses. So your trash setup is going to be 2-piece Veladreth, Soul's Torment on the front bar, Burning Spellweave on body, with an Infernal Staff on the back bar, and Harpooner's Waiting Kill. And the skill setup for the trash setup is going to be as follows. On the front bar, Pulsar, Detonating Siphon, Blast Bones, Boneyard, Necrotic Potency, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. On the back bar, your secondary bar, is going to be Mystic Orb, Unstable Wall, Proximity Detonation, Channel Acceleration, Arcanist, and Colossus. For your dungeon or for main arena setup, you could consider going 2-piece Stormfist and 5-piece Boss Ace Mania on body, Medusa on the front bar, and Maelstrom Staff on the back bar, and Inferno Staff setup. In terms of the skills, you can go with Force Pulse, Detonating Siphon, Blast Bones, Boneyard, Camouflaged Hunter, Flawless Dawnbreaker on the front bar, along with Mystic Orb Wall, Structured Entropy, Detonating Siphon, Arcanist, and Colossus on the back bar. If you don't have a healer in your group for dungeons or arenas, you can use the following skill setup. Basically the same thing, except we do have Resistant Flesh on the back bar in place of a Detonating Siphon, which is basically a flex slot. For a solo setup, otherwise known for solo arena like Maelstrom Arena and so forth, you can go with a Slimecrawl 1-piece, 5 False Gods, Solzon's Torment on the front bar. We do have Ring of the Pale Order as well, and we have a Maelstrom Inferno on the back bar. And the skill setup will probably look like this: Force Pulse, Mystic Siphon, Blast Bones, Summoner's Armor. We do have, or Beckoning Armor depending on your preference, Mystic Spirit Guardian, Flawless Dawnbreaker on the front bar, Mystic Orb, Wall, Boneyard, Channel Acceleration, Arcanist, and Colossus on the back bar. Lastly, for your last alternative setup, and this is going to be more typical for Magicka Necromancers using the Elemental Catalyst set for their 12-man raid teams, you will most likely be able to wear 1-piece Slimecrawl, 5-piece Elemental Catalyst on the body, 5-piece Boss Ace on the front bar, Harpooner's Waiting Kilt when applicable depending on the fights, and a Maelstrom Staff on the back bar. And your EC Crow setups can look like the following depending on the fight as well. We have Force Pulse, Mystic Siphon, Blast Bones, Barb Trap, and Inner Light on the front bar with Flawless Dawnbreaker. In terms of preference, you can swap out the Mystic Siphon for Detonating Siphon depending on the context. And on the back bar, it's pretty much similar across the board in terms of Mystic Orb, Unstable Wall, Entropy, Boneyard, and Arcanist with Colossus on the back bar. Now let's talk about the rotation itself for the Magicka Necromancer. For the ideal rotation itself, just like a few other classes we reviewed for this patch, it is ideal in terms of boss A usage to consume a spell power potion roughly 30 seconds before you start the actual fight. In the Magicka Necromancer case, as shown by Madara here in this video, you can reduce your Magicka pool down to about 25%. Use Channeled Acceleration, and then with the help of Dressing Room or any other gear swap add-on, if you are on PC, you can change your setup or skills, transitioning from Channeled Acceleration. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you can just simply move on to the next step of your pre-buff or opening rotation, which is basically casting Blast Bones at a distance of an in-game 18 meters away from the target. Immediately cast Skeletal Arcanist and Mystic Orb with Scouting Rune and Shooting Star as you run up to the target. The distance at which you cast the Blast Bones will make sure that the Blast Bones hits the target as you carry out this opening rotation. By the time your first Blast Bones hits the target, you should be casting and maintaining the following skills in order: Unstable Wall of Fire, Blast Bones, Detonating Siphon, Avid Boneyard, Blast Bones, Mystic Orb, Scouting Rune, Blast Bones, Entropy, Unstable Wall of Fire, Blast Bones, Skeletal Arcanist, and Barbed Trap. For a dynamic rotation, this is largely dependent on how well aware you are of your Magicka sustain or Magicka resource. If you notice that you have little Magicka and you understand that you will not have enough Magicka to use 2 skills after Blast Bones, just start spamming Siphon. For example, you can do Blast Bones, Siphon, Boneyard, Blast Bones, Siphon, Scouting Rune. Oh wait, I don't have enough Magicka. Blast Bones, Siphon, Mystic Orb, Blast Bones. Oh, I don't have enough Magicka. Siphon, Entropy. If you see that you have a lot of Magicka and the cooldown of all skills has not yet passed, you can use Scouting Rune plus Siphon or Scouting Rune plus Unstable Wall of Fire. For example, with this, you can do Blast Bones, then Scouting Rune, and then Siphon, or Blast Bones, Siphon, then Wall, or Blast Bones, then Scouting Rune, and then Wall. For a static rotation, Magicka Necromancer is pretty much mostly static for the most part. However, for a static rotation, as rigid as you can get it, you pretty much do the exact same opening rotation as we just kind of went over. But by the time the Blast Bones hits the target, you should be casting and maintaining the following skills in order, statically. Unstable Wall of Fire, Blast Bones, Siphon, Avid Boneyard, Blast Bones, Mystic Orb, Entropy, Blast Bones, Ricochet's Call, as we do have a different setup here, Wall, Blast Bones, Skeletor Arcanist, and Barb Trap. All you have to do for the side rotation is simply keep up the dots when you can and use the Ricochet's Call until the target dies with the skill setup shown below. As you can see, it's different from the bars above for a different dynamic rotation with Siphon Spam. And lastly, for your execute rotation, once your target hits about 4% health on the target, roughly 800,000 health, all dot abilities should stop being cast. The last Blast Bones you want to cast is at about 2 to 3% health, which is roughly 500 to 600,000 health on the target dummy. And when the target has about 2% health, which is roughly 300,000 health on the dummy, just spam Siphon. But yeah, that is pretty much it. We'll go over the other classes. Hopefully it will be a bit more interesting next patch in terms of the variety of gear or skill setup even, and most likely we'll see that with the hybridization we'll expect some homogenization of the 6 classes in terms of not just viewing it as Magicka and Stamina, but also just simply as an entire class in itself. But yeah, I am very looking forward to next patch, and if there are any more classes we can or need to cover before next patch, we'll do so. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out. Wherever you may be, whenever you may be, stay safe, have fun, and see you guys next time.